Check, check. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Team Edwards, if you could listen up. We'll begin the commander's call shortly. Please take your seats and silence all phones, radios. If you have questions, the QR code will pop back up on the screen, and then you can also text 707-412-8922 also. We'll now play a short video.
He stopped by the restroom. Test. You got me. Money.
At the heart of Edwards Air Force Base, a symphony of dedication and teamwork takes flight. Its sacred lake bed, an arena of sand, cradles the echoes and bears witness to the triumphs and tribulations of flight tests. Every takeoff, every soaring achievement is the result of a harmonious ensemble, a testament to the power of unity and purpose. With our educators, who light the spark of curiosity in our minds. Builders and landscapers who transform this earth into a backdrop for innovation. Maintainers, unsung heroes, ensuring every aircraft is ready for the sky, often in the dead of night. Engineers, architects of dreams, designing the future of aviation with precision and ingenuity. Doctors, nurses, and medtechs, silent sentinels of health that keep the heart of our base pumping. Logisticians, skilled tacticians, orchestrating the intricate coordination of resources and supply chains. Defenders, steadfast guardians, providing stability and safety to our people. And don't forget the cooks, clerks, and countless support staff who keep the base running seamlessly, fueling the passion for those who fly. All of these roles, seemingly unrelated, empower Edwards to deliver crucial testing to our Air Force. Here, at the center of aerospace testing universe, we have played a role in the development of virtually every aircraft in the United States Air Force since World War II. Together, we are Team Edwards, testing tomorrow's war-winning capabilities today.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Test Wing Command Team.
Take your seats, please. Wow, that's a big crowd. Yeah. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Just another beautiful one here in our little corner of the Mojave Desert. That's what it looks like from up above. We are developing the future Air Force here. And if you just take a look at some of the things that we've done, and there's actually more to this picture. Actually, some of you will notice it right away. Is of course, the B-2 was on great display last weekend. All right. But it would not have gotten there without a little bit of help from some folks right there. So the Flying Tigers, the 14th Flight Test Squadron, delivered capability, delivered the KC-46 a couple years ago, and just on extraordinary display over the weekend. So this was This will go down in history as one of those incredibly complex, eye-opening events. So on, early in the morning on Saturday, more than a third of our operational B-2s took off, flew halfway around the world, and then with incredible precision accuracy, hit their targets, and then came back and landed Sunday afternoon. This was a very, very complex operation. The airmen, from all appearances, executed it absolutely flawlessly. The machines, the technology that you helped develop, for all appearances, worked exactly the way it was. And for many Americans, and actually for probably most of the world, this is the first time that they'd heard of the GBU-57, the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. It was, some have characterized it as an overnight success, but it was 20 years in the making. Before, this is a 2019 operational test. Before that happens, we have to do our thing. And so we've been working on the MOP for close to 20 years. This was started as an AFRL experiment. JDAM was a new thing in the early aughts, and we were now into the global war on terror. There were lots of caves deep in Afghanistan, and how do we so the mad scientist, if you will, in AFRL RW started thinking about how do we actually kinetically do this with conventional weapons, and that was where the idea of the MOP was born. So originally we just took a GPS tail kit and put it on the back of a really big bomb, and it didn't work quite right. But that's what we do, right? We develop technology. Gravity did work. It did hit the ground on the white side is missile range. This is actually one of those early tests off of our B-52 of not the very first one, but one of the very early tests about 15 years ago off of the B-52, just to prove out the technology. The bomb bay of the B-2 needed to be modified. Guess who did that? About a decade ago, we had the GBU-57 in the BAF. That's not the GBU-57 there, but the test looks a lot like that, to test the GPS tail kit in the Banafeld anechoic chamber. That was all work that some of our folks are actually here doing that work. Some of the folks in uniform weren't around here, but those are your predecessors. And that's what we do. That's what we do every single day, working on enhancing this technology to deliver that capability to the warfighter so that decision makers have options. But it's not just, as we already mentioned, the B-2s are not gonna get there without the gas. And so the KC-46, KC-135, the 14th Flight Test Squadron was absolutely instrumental in delivering that capability. And of course, if it was in the air, all right, thanks, AB. But no matter how good maintenance is, if there's not a runway for us to take off on, so our great CE team, and there's no secret about what we do here, so we are hiding behind a wall of world-class defenders who keep us safe and secure. That one's always a cloud favorite. And of course, there are a number of folks that are sitting in the control rooms on those GBU-57 missions, on those KC-46 missions, who have children, who you can't just leave at home alone. So our child and youth programs are absolutely indispensable for the mission capability of what we do, delivering integrated capability to the warfighter. So this is a team, this is a overnight success of many layers that was 20 years in the making. We're just at the range of, there we go. And of course, it actually, it was more than 20 years in the making. You can go back 40 years. So this is the first flight of the B-2 from Plant 42 down at Palmdale. Took off just like the B-21 did 2 years ago. Took off from Palmdale, Plant 42, and came here to Edwards Air Force Base. So we would not have had Midnight Hammer without that work 40 years ago. And you actually go back another 40 years from that. Go back 80 years. That's the YB-49 taken off here at Edwards Air Force Base. So October 1947 was the first flight of the YB-49. They took the XB-35, YB-35, which were piston-driven aircraft, and actually converted them to the early turbojets. The reason we were here at Edwards was because of the turbojet invention. So although we had been here as a bombing range since Lieutenant Colonel Hap Arnold had established us on the shores of a lake bed that had no water, in 1942, as we were developing the first jet fighter, the Air Force, or the Army Air Force, needed a remote 6 months after 1947, and Captain Glenn Edwards was actually one of the pilots that was being considered. In October 1947 was also when Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier here at Edwards Air Force Base. But he was actually one of the pilots that was being considered for that. But he was actually, selected for this program. He was a great pilot. And in June of 1948, during a high-speed dive recovery, this is a very, very low drag configuration, this flying wing, and they got much faster than they expected in the dive, and the recovery from the dive had a structural failure. Likely the wings ripped off under the aerodynamic loads, and Captain Glenn Edwards and 4 other aircrew were killed in that crash. And so December 1949, we redesignated this special sacred place that develops the future, invents the future, Edwards Air Force Base. And we're still doing that today, 80 years later. If you want to know what the Air Force of 2030, 2035, 2040, 2050 looks like, it's the one that is flying over Edwards Air Force Base today, and it's been that way for 80 years. And so today's commander's call, that was the prologue. We've got a prologue and we've got 4 chapters. So chapter 1 is we just want to kind of set some strategic context about where the world is. Chapter 2 is going to be what is our role, our mission here at Edwards in that strategic context as the Air Force is developing its One Force design. Chapter 3, Chief Stoltzfus is going to talk to you about our culture of mission command and what that means. And it all really leads up to chapter 4, which is about being mission ready. So chapter 1, what's past is prologue. There are times where you can see the future. The future's often already here, we just don't recognize it, that it's here. So in 1937, April 1937, during the Spanish, this is early in the Spanish Civil War, there was a 5 waves of Italian and German bombers bombed the town of Guernica in the Basque region of Spain. It was the first time, it was 5 waves. It was on Market Day in April. Somewhere, we're not really sure how many people were killed. It's somewhere between several hundred and several thousand were likely killed in the bombing of Guernica. It was, the world had never seen anything like that, and it was kind of shocking to the world, and there's some ambiguity whether at the time it was considered a lawful act of war or not to bomb civilians in a civilian population. But that was really just a preview of what we would see in World War II. One of Pablo Picasso's most famous paintings is called Guernica, and he painted, it was commissioned for the town of Guernica. It's a big, huge mural, and he painted it in just a feverish of about 30 days. And that was just a preview of what was going to come. So, if we fast forward just 8 years, over 2 days over Valentine's Day, going on right now, that may be informative to what the future of war looks like. So let's take a look at Ukraine, Iran, and then there's this little island over here. So June 1st, Operation Spiderweb, a quite impressive, hiding drones in trucks and then flying them, attacking simultaneously 4 different targets. At the opening day, so 2 weeks ago, as the opening days of Rising Lion, the Israeli Air Force operation inside of Iran, was actually, they had Mossad troops on the ground, again, remotely operating short-range things to take out some of the IADs to open the way for the fighters to come in unmolested. I'm really glad we got defenders now after looking at that. I am really glad they have actually been, in the spirit of Mission Command, they've recognized the threat and they've been out in front in terms of deploying counter small UAS capability here. So, and we can also kind of look at what China is doing. They are right now also looking forward and also preparing a force that is capable of invading Taiwan. So those may be hints of what's to come. Let's come back to Edwards and figure out what that means to us. So chapter 2 is where does our mission fit in to the strategic context of how the world is changing. So the strategic environment is definitely changing, and we have to adapt. The last time that we had a deliberate force that was designed was back in the Cold War. So we realized, you know, at that point in time, the Soviets were the pacing threat, the Warsaw Pact, and we built an air force that was designed to counter the numerical superiority. There was no way that we were going to be able to meet the Warsaw Pact on numbers. They had a clear, in Eastern Europe, a clear numerical advantage over us. Depending on which order of battle, which forces you look at, a 2-to-1, a 3-to-1, a 5-to-1 numerical advantage. And we were not going to compete numerically with the Warsaw Pact. So we competed on technology. And what we did here at Edwards Air Force Base as part of that technological advancement was that investment in that development of stealth, precision navigation, precision communication, and precision weapons. That was what, you know, a couple years later, 20 years later, we'd call it the second offset. I can't find any record of them calling it the second offset at the time in the 1980s. But that was the work that we did here as part of a force design to counter what was our pacing threat, the Soviet Union at that time. And that, to a large extent, that's still the force that we have today. Is we inherited the Cold War Air Force that we developed. And the Air Force is now actually starting to think about what does a future force design for the 21st century look like if we were to build it from the ground up. And since our role is developing that future capability, that's where we fit in to all of this. So we have, since that force design, the one that we still have, we've gone through 3 different epochs. And those epochs are conveniently separated by these culminating events. So we had the Soviet Union dissolving, we had the Berlin Wall coming down. It was the end of history. I can remember all the great optimism when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, that, you know, peace was breaking out all over and we'd never need to have, and we took the great peace dividend and we cut half of our Air Force squadrons and we still had what we have. And that euphoria of the 90s lasted until 9/11. And that was another culminating event that forced us into a period of global war on terror and countering violent extremism. And we fought that war largely with the force that we had developed for a much different war, for the Cold War. But we adapted it. And there were some things that we added. There were certainly capabilities that we added. But if you even look at the F-22 that became IOC in the mid-aughts, the original RFP, request for proposal, for the advanced tactical fighter that became the F-22 was released in 1982. It was a Cold War design that then we adapted to what we have now. We are now entering a 4th epoch. And fortunately, there has not been a culminating event, at least not yet. And so this epoch now that we're a quarter of the way into the 21st century, is a epoch of great power enmity. There we go. And so Chairman Xi has made no secret about his intent with the island of Taiwan, which he sees as part of the mainland China. There's some ambiguous history. In fact, you could pick your own history in terms of whether or not it's part of China. For a long time, it was actually part of Japan. For a lot of time, it was just the island of Formosa. If you ask the Taiwanese people, they have a different opinion than Chairman Xi has of whether or not they are part of the People's Republic of China, the PRC. And so this is a slide you can clearly see, kind of the what China's intent is. And China right now, or I should say Chairman Xi is directing the PLA in its force design. How do you get a force all the way across 90 miles of the Taiwan Strait when Taiwan doesn't want you to come and land on your beaches? And so we know where the ports are. They were on the target map there on the previous slide. And so one way to do it is, we've got these floating piers that can actually drive across the strait, set down these pylons into the mud, and then link them together with Bailey bridges. And so now you can bring roll-on, roll-off, deep water, relatively deep water, roll-on, roll-off without a port, and then just drive right onto the beach. And so they're actively testing that right now. This is back in March off the coast of Guangdong. That is what China's doing right now. So their intentions are kind of clear. They're also, that's not the only domain where they're operating. So the largest, the PLA has in the name, and the ones that originate from Iran have Sandstorm in the name. So these are the ones for the last 5 years, the last named ones for the last 5 years. We've talked about a couple of these before. We've talked about Volt Typhoon, which is the targeting of our critical infrastructure. It's the access to all the SCADA systems that control our grid. We talked last fall about Salt Typhoon, which is the telecommunications. So there's 9 telecom companies that they gained access to and have all the phone records and all the connection records. The new one that just came out a couple months ago is Silk Typhoon. So cloud operations, cloud computing, cloud storage, all that's very, very convenient. We're using it a lot now. Silk Typhoon is deliberately targeting those cloud operations. So again, the more cyber operations, it's not just about barges floating across the Taiwan Strait. And if you want peace, prepare for war. We do want peace. War with China is not inevitable. But as we have seen in other places, the best way to prevent a war is to have the capability that deters that aggression in the first place. Eisenhower, said that the only way to win the next World War is to prevent in the first place. And so war is not inevitable, and that's why what we are doing here at Edwards Air Force Base is so important, because we are developing that capability. That is, our goal is to change Chairman Xi's calculus so that he thinks today is not the day to start, the invasion going across the straits of Taiwan. There's a number of things that I could pick apart in Chairman Xi's statement there, and I'm very clear about. It's been going all day, hasn't it? You'll also only get those here at Edwards. There's a number of statements there that, the reunification, again, that's a matter of perspective. It's righteous in what the people want. Well, it's certainly what Chairman Xi wants. Again, I think if you were to ask the majority of the people in Taiwan, who are a self-governed democracy, that they would beg to differ, that's what they want. And so, China they went to school on that Air Force, and so that Air Force that we helped deliver in the 1980s and was on great display in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, China went to school on that. And they watched that victory. that we had in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And they didn't do much for a decade, but in the aughts, they started developing the PLA to counter that strength. And so that's where we now are with our counter move to that. And you better believe that they went to school on what we just did last weekend with Midnight Hammer. You know, we demonstrated a capability to go anywhere in the world at any time of our choosing with incredibly complex, synchronized operations and to do what we want. For about the last year, I'll point this out right here. For about the last year, on roughly a 2-month interval, China's been doing something new and provocative. And every 2 months has been more provocative than it was previously. It's like they just keep pushing, you know, the volume up. You know, their amp is now up, their volume's now up to 11. December, it was the largest naval exercise that the Pacific had seen since the end of World War II. And it was not announced. They just started it. Normally, when we do exercises, I mean, it's years ahead of time. We're saying, hey, and we've been talking about Re4Pack for a while now. You know, it's not going to be a secret because we don't want to inadvertently spook somebody into thinking that, hey, we just started war. That was a lesson from the Cold War of you know, not actually fighting the Russians. So December was that big naval operation. In February, it was live fire exercises in the Tasman Sea. Again, unannounced. Well, I guess they did announce it once they started. Once they started firing missiles between New Zealand and Australia, they did pick up the phone and say, oh, but yeah, by the way, you might want to reroute the commercial airline traffic that flies between New Zealand and Australia because we're firing missiles down there. And once they got done with that live fire exercise, then they sailed around Australia. If you blockade another country, that is actually, under international law, that is an act of war. The international rules and the rules of war say nothing about a quarantine. It's not defined in international legal forms. So a quarantine, they could, probably one of the scenarios that's very easy to envision is we are quarantining Taiwan. And we are going to levy tariffs or something, you know, everything that could, not we, the PLAN and the Coast Guard, and they're going to enforce a quarantine because we don't want arms shipments or we don't want something, you know, to go into the island. That appears to be what Straight Thunder 25 Alpha. That was in April. So 2 months, something should have, if they were to keep that 2-month cadence, something should have happened in June. Nothing has happened. So maybe we're starting to see the change of calculus a little bit. But again, numerically, we've showed this slide before. Chairman Xi has built up a numerically formidable force in the Pacific, and we are not going to counter. You know, just like we couldn't beat the Warsaw Pact numerically, we are not going to counter the PLA numerically, and so that's really where the Air Force's one force design comes in. And so I'll go through this quickly. This is in here for Doc Waters and the TE&G folks. I promised that there would be some differential equations, so here they are for all the engineers in the audience. These are the Lanchester equations. So Frederick Lanchester, back in World War I, was interested in attrition warfare, specifically actually aerial warfare. And so these differential equations, you know, the rate at which red is attrited is proportional to how many blue are shooting at them and the kind of the lethality of the blue. And vice versa, the rate at which blue is attrited is based on how many red there are. And so as a homework assignment, all the engineers in the audience are welcome to, I'll give you the solution so you can check your answer in the back of the book. But you need to go home. This is a fairly straightforward separation. You can do it by separation of variables. And you get this hyperbola here. The bottom line of that is you can take this right here, and so blue is going to win if and only if this this is known as Lanchester's square law. And so you can look at this. There's this, if you look at the number of blue versus the number of red, there's an area here in the upper half of the plane where red has a numerical advantage, and down here where blue has a numerical advantage. And so we are certainly at a place where, let's say hypothetically that there's a 3-to-1, so red is 3 times blue. If we start out with equal lethality, red is going to win overwhelmingly. if we have a 4-time advantage over red, we still lose. This tells us that we actually need, if red outnumbers us 3-1, we actually need better than a 9-1 lethality advantage. So every time we shoot a missile, we have 9 times the probability of killing red than red has of shooting us. And there was a time when we probably had that technological advantage, that technological superiority. I don't know that we do now. So, but even if we get an order of magnitude lethality ratio advantage over red, we'll win, but we'll lose 2/3 of our forces doing so. So a very, very simple model, but it's still very illustrative, and it actually helps understand the Air Force's one-force design. And we can actually look at what China's doing, and you could come to your own conclusion as to whether or not we enjoy, how much of a lethality advantage we enjoy over red at this point. So this is the newest Type 054 Bravo, I think actually the first Type 054 Bravo. It's an advanced frigate. It was just commissioned in January of this year. Frigates are designed for anti-submarine warfare, which is a little bit easier in the Straits of Taiwan anyway, because they tend to be pretty shallow. A very modern stealth frigate by most. And of course, we are not the industrial capacity of China. We are not going to compete on numbers. So we have to do it another way. So we have a numerical challenge. We also just happen to have a range problem in the Pacific. It's a long way away. And so, most of now we do have great partners and allies. I will take my partners and allies any day over Chairman Xi's. He's got North Korea, Putin, and maybe on a good day he has Iran. We have the UK, we have the Aussies, we have Japan, we have South Korea. We have very, very reliable partners and allies throughout the region. So that is definitely a competitive advantage. But even some of our closest allies are still, 3,000, 4,000 nautical miles away. Guam is 15. I'm ignoring all the places here inside the first island chain, which I think China knows where they all are. If you were to come from mainland, so to do kind of what we did with Midnight Hammer, you're talking 6,000 plus nautical miles. So one more equation for the engineers, the Brigade range equation, which all the engineers will recognize. And Colonel Carlin is smiling because they teach this at the test pilot school. You can solve the Brigade range equation for the fuel to payload ratio and look at how much fuel does it take, with different technologies, different capabilities to get. So if you have just a normal air-breathing engine, to go 6,000 nautical miles to deliver 1 pound of payload, you need 20 times as much fuel. And that that lethality parameter that we talked about before under the Lanchester square law, it's actually inversely proportional to that fuel to payload ratio, because every pound that you spend getting to the target is a pound that you don't have to put on the target. And so now, if we take like just an average of 4,000 nautical miles or 4,500 nautical miles, it's about a 10-to-1 fuel to payload disadvantage. So now instead of a 10-to-1 lethality parameter advantage that we need to counter a 3-to-1 numerical advantage, we need a 100-to-1. And again, you can make your own assessment whether or not you think we have a 100-to-1 technological advantage over the People's Liberation Army. Now there's things that stealth and some other things and what you can do from space and what you can do in cyber that change the game and make it much more complicated, but that simple model is still extremely informative and helps understand where the Air Force is going with its one-force design. So this is the Chief of Staff's letter from last fall on one-force design, and this is where the mission areas are defined. And you're going to start to hear more about this, the Mission Area 1, Mission Area 2, Mission Area 3. And so the Mission Area 1 capabilities are those ones that you don't really care too much about, and you solve the range problem essentially with them by just not having to go a long way. And so you put a bunch of stuff, imagine turning Taiwan into a porcupine. It's kind of like, what Ukraine's been able to do against the Russian invasion and make it very, very costly. And that just buys you some time. It delays the forces. So that all these capabilities right here, and this is traditionally, not where the Air Force is, but as the Air Force is looking at its future force design, just like we had during the Cold War. Okay, how do we beat the big bad commies, that are there across the Fulda Gap with all their tanks? What do we do? Okay, well, how about an A-10? So we're doing that now. So the Missionary 1 capability is designed, to help solve that range problem. You still need that high-end capability. And so that Mission Area 2, and again, the force design isn't specific about systems. There's a classified version of it that just came out in May that does get into systems, but you can imagine it has attributes. And so the attributes are the ability to persist in contested airspace. So think stealth, think long range, think B-21 is a capability that would fit very nicely. It has all the attributes that would fit and are aligned with the Mission Area 2 capability. Guess we're working on that, huh? F-47 is definitely a Mission Area 2 capability. And we're working on that as well. And then finally, Mission Area 3 are those things that once you've degraded the system, now you can actually bring in the affordable mass. And so how can you turn a C-17 into an ability to carry just lots of ordnance, as an example? So, the AFRL program, Rapid Dragon, is an example of types of capabilities that would fit very nicely into those Mission Area 3. And once you've degraded the air system enough, now fourth generation actually has a role to help bring all of that mass. And again, that's capability and that you are helping work and develop and support. So that when you hear the Air Force talk one force design, this is what the chief is talking about. And you have a part in making it. So we're coming to the end of chapter 2 here. This is combat collaborative aircraft. It's going to fly, we expect, sometime this calendar year. We're already working on it, and guess where it's going to show up? Where do things come to get tested and developed so that they get matured, so that they're ready to hand off to the warfighter so the warfighter can go, if needed, if we have options. Again, we don't want war. We want to prevent war. But to prevent war, you need to have the capability that the other side respects. And so we're working on CCAs right now. The F-47, we're working on that, and it will be here in a couple of years. The only place you're going to see the B-21 flying is here at Edwards Air Force Base. In a couple of years, the only place you'll see the F-47 flying is here. We do want peace. Be very, very clear. And we have this is a point we've made before, but it's so important I will make it every single time. We have no ill will with the Chinese people. Chairman Xi is the problem. He is pushing back against the international rules-based order that has kept the relative peace and ensured the prosperity of the world since the end of World War II. And he's pushing back against that. He is trying to rewrite the rules on terms that are favorable to China. In his view, the West wrote the rules after World War II to the advantage of the West. I have a different opinion, but we are trying to change Chairman Xi's calculus, but we have no ill will against the Chinese people. In fact, many of them probably do not like living under Chairman Xi's authoritarian, single-party rule. All right, so that was chapter 2. Chapter 3, our very own, my partner in command, Chief Master Sergeant Stoltzfus.
Thanks, sir. Is this thing on? Can you guys hear me? All right. First off, we just saw a lot of slides about a lot of stuff. That isn't to scare people. That's to help you understand that we need to get ready, right? And I am really glad that General Wickert's on our team. I can tell you that. All right. I can tell his commander's calls are making a difference because EOD is sitting up front. All right, so we'll start off with that. So we want to talk a little bit about mission command, right? Why is that important? Who in here hasn't heard that phrase before, mission command? Anybody? Right, so everybody is somewhat familiar with it, so I won't go over the definition. But what I will say is that we saw a bunch of slides about how China outpaces us and they have more assets and they have more people. But what they don't have is what's sitting in this room right now. This is our asymmetric advantage, you. They don't have a Colonel Brown. They don't have a Dano. They don't have a General Wickert, right? And so on and so forth. But we do. And I believe in us. And it's because I know 99.9% of the people in this room and what you bring to the fight. I understand that part of it. So why talk about mission command when everybody in here already knows what it is? Because it's important, that's why. That's why we're going to take a couple minutes to talk about it. I'm not going to do linear equations. I know that's disappointing to a lot of people in here. So I'm going to keep it strategically simplistic, and I'm going to tie it back here to Edwards and give you some examples of how our teammates from senior airmen on up, and even at every level, have been conducting mission command. To me, it's really strategically simplistic. It's understanding what your commander's intent is, helping your teammates understand the why, and then getting up, getting out there, and getting after it. That's really what it's about. Because some of you have heard me say this before, and if you haven't, here it is. You don't need our permission to lead. You have that because you work here at Edwards Air Force Base. It is inherent to what you do each and every day. And what you do each and every day is creating that deterrence that's going to keep us from World War III, so I appreciate that. In the background here, we used this slide. Luckily, the boss uploaded it for me. We used this slide when we had our senior NCO call, and we talked about mission command a little bit. Hopefully, you can see yourself in one of these photos. Maybe not yourself, but one of your teammates, and what you do each and every day. 3 examples of mission command here at Edwards Air Force Base. One of them comes from EOD and the field exercise, the joint field training exercise that they set up. Who told them to set that up? Did you, boss? Nope. I didn't. Dano, did you tell them? No, they found a need because they understood commander's intent. They understood the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the SIMSAF's intent. Oh, we need to be ready. So they brought us a layout of a field training exercise that probably hadn't been done here in years. But they saw a need. That is exactly what we're talking about. That is mission command. That is what it looks like to me. Empowered leadership. Our teammates taking intent from the highest levels and saying, oh, I got an idea. Let's see if we can do this. We have leadership here that supports that. But it all starts with trust. It is all based on trust. If you don't have that building block in the equation, it's hard for me to say, hey, here's what I need you to do, and then not micromanage the whole process. And how do you build trust? That's a question. Who's got an answer for me? Side out, how do you build trust? Yeah, that's right, Shirt. I call on people during commander's calls. Hi. Thank you. I usually call her Talu, but we'll call her Side out today. Consistent. You do what you're supposed to do. You build trust by saying you're going to do something and then doing it. My wife's here in the crowd, so she's probably like, well, yeah, okay, I got it. I understand that. Right? But without being too much of a hypocrite, that's the basis of what it is. You build trust by doing what you say you're going to do. And how do we do that? As leaders, we give people the bandwidth to go do that. What is it called when you tell somebody what to do and exactly how to do it? Micromanagement, right? There will be a time for the boss and the leaders in this room to give direct orders. That's unemotional. But an effective team is built because everybody has an input, because there's trust. That's what mission command really is, right? Look up the definition, do what you want. The Air Force hasn't always had a culture like other branches of service outside of like some of the specialties like EOD, right, to really embody what it means. EOD is one example in their FTX. Sergeant Dorvit, are you in here? Where you at? Is he here today? Nope, Defender. Set up an exercise a couple months ago. Nobody told him to do it. He saw a need. Him and his teammates got together, and they went out, and they did it. And their leadership supported them. Why did their leadership support them? Come on, stay with me here. Trust. Dano. They don't have a Dano. We do. Right? because they've built that trust. Let me tell you a way not to build trust. Not understanding what standards mean. You knew I was going to throw it in there. Right? You knew I was going to throw something about standards. Not being able to take care of the basic airman competencies. That's how you degrade trust. So mission command isn't only about your commander telling you, hey, here's what I expect, right? And the definition. It's about controlling the things that you can control to build the trust that develops a common understanding so you can go out when it counts and do what your country needs you to do. The asymmetric advantage is sitting in this room, right here. That's each and every one of you. Some of you may or may not know this, but today's my last commander's call. Boo, yes, thank you. I feel the same way, boo. I heard somebody say, whore? I don't know. Maybe that is a whore. Yeah, that was Jess. Right, I appreciate that. The reason I say that is that this is my opportunity to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do each and every day. Right? You hear a lot of people come up here and say this, that, and the third, but hopefully I was able to show that while I was here. I care about each and every one of you, and more importantly, I care about what you've done, what you're doing, and what you're going to continue to do for this great nation. Thank you very much. Stoltz out. Thanks for the opportunity.
He doesn't know that was going to be in it. This is, so after 28 years in uniform, this is Chief Master Sergeant Stoltzfus' final commander's call. And we'll have lots of opportunities. We're going to farewell him tonight at the club. We also are going to have an opportunity to celebrate his career as well as Jess's contributions to that career. And Dylan and Aiden at his retirement next month. Again, in front of the wing, I've got to say you have been absolutely amazing partner on this command team. The 412th Test Wing, Edwards Air Force Base, is lucky you were exactly the command chief that we needed when they had it. So please, one more round of applause for Chief Stoltzfus. The best part of that is how uncomfortable he is right now. I am relishing that. So that was chapter 3. So we've had the strategic context, the force design, mission command, and so chapter 4 now is mission readiness. Before we get to that, I've got a couple of gratuitous sunrise, sunset pictures in here because we love the sunsets and sunrises around here. A great airplane. It is, so not only are we losing a command chief, we've actually got several command turning over. So Chief Stoltz and I are going to hand off responsibility and command next month. So Colonel Tower is right here in front. Colonel Master Tower. Is going to be your new wing commander, and I've already heard him promise, he actually promises double integrals in his commander's calls. And your exit ticket from the commander's calls, you actually have to have a solution. So we got Colonel Tower coming in, and we got Chief Skarlokin coming in, a cop. So defenders, you better be on your game. We're also going to say goodbye to Colonel Brown. We've already had the Colonel change of command for Colonel Valpiani, and Colonel Purcell has already pulled chocks as well. And in their place on the back side, Colonel Brown's headed off to be the 10th Air Base Wing Commander at the Air Force Academy. We got Colonel Reberg coming in behind him. Colonel Carlin, no stranger to the 412th Test Wing, is already our new TPS Commandant. And then sometime in August, Colonel Tower will officiate the assumption of command for Colonel Buchholz, who will take over the CE group. So this is your new command time. I do promise under that new command team, you will still have as spectacular sunrises and sunsets as you do. So here's one, so Chief and I, he actually sends me pictures, sunrise and sunset pictures, and this is one that, you remember taking this? You remember sending this one to me? This was from January. They're beautiful around here. So chapter 4 is all about mission readiness. And our priorities from 2 years ago, and a lot has happened in 2 years. We had a new administration, some new directions. We are now talking force design, but it actually turns out that the priorities that we set 2 years ago are actually still valid today under the strategic environment that we have. So just in the final chapter here, just a real quick update on all those priorities. I don't have enough time to sing all the praises of everything that we've done under data and digital transformation. I have been deeply impressed. Chief talked about Mission Command. We kind of put out a vision, and you guys just ran with it. It's absolutely extraordinary. And we had the opportunity, General Richardson was here in April, we had the opportunity to just show, as one example of everything that you're doing with generative AI in terms of being more effective and more productive at work. This is actually across AFTC, but we've got young engineers here that have created this AI flight test assistant, and we're looking for other opportunities. So everything from generating test hazard analysis, generating test plans, to generating test cards, getting that initial 80 to 90%, because the fact of the matter is we are at a historically high ops tempo. Even going back to the 80s, the last time during the Reagan buildup and that second offset, if you compare what we're doing now and what's coming, it is extraordinary. And we're probably eventually, I expect, going to start hiring more people again, because just for F-47, we need 800 more people to execute that mission. And guess what? All the other programs, B-21 is not going away. CCA is not going away. So I do expect, in the meantime, we can be more efficient, and so that's what this data and digital transformation priority has been all about. So I've just been deeply, deeply impressed with the spirit. Again, you don't need Chiefs or my permission to lead, and you haven't asked for permission, you've just gone out and done it. And when you need more resources, you ask, and so far we've been able to give. So keep asking. All right, so I'm gonna spend a lot more time talking, and my one regret is actually naming this priority. This was our first priority, is actually naming it quality of life. Because when you say quality of life, particularly to external stakeholders, people think, oh, so like MWR stuff. Okay, yes, but no, quality of life is actually mission readiness. It's medical, it's childcare, it's all of that. So a quick update on where we are. First off, we do live in a remote, isolated location. However, our Force Support Squadron has got something going on almost every single week. If you can't find something fun to do, this is just the last year. These are all the things that they've had in just the last year. So if you can't find something fun, then yeah, you're not looking. I really can't help you, because there's a whole lot of opportunities. And so just hats off to our Force Support Squadron. And if you haven't tried the club on a Friday, or any night really, on Fridays, I don't know what the pot's up to now, $1,200. So on the first, actually every Friday there's a drawing, and it's up to $1,200 if you're a member. So our wider Air Force Big A Airman family here at Edwards is more than just the uniform members, it's more than just the civilians, it's more than just the contractors who work in our CTFs, who are every bit as part of our Big A Airman team. It is actually all of our children and the rest of our extended family. So I was an Air Force brat myself, and obviously with my 3 kids, all grew up as Air Force brats, so my wife and I know what it is. You know, Jess and Stoltz, they've got two wonderful boys. They grew up, and so we understand the hardship of growing up. But again, I'm really, really impressed with all the things that we do to support, the child and youth programs and the schools, the Muroc Joint Unified School District, just a great partnership. There are some challenges. and I think you're aware of them. So, earlier this month, we had to cut back on some of the services due to just chronic staffing challenges. We do not have the staff to run a full 12 hours. Never mind that the Air Force Services Center only funds us for 10 hours, and we've always just paid that extra 2 hours. More than happy to do that. We've got the money because of our great FMers. Where are they sitting? Yeah, right back there. Every time that we run out of money, they keep finding more. It's fantastic. But money alone doesn't solve this. It's a people problem. So we do not have the staff to run. So we had to cut back services to 10 hours. We had to, cut back some of the other things that aren't as critical. We had to, fortunately, again, because of that great partnership with the Morac Joint Unified School District, so the wraparound TK care, so that before, when our normal duty day starts, but TK hasn't started yet, the school day hasn't started, and then after TK is over, but guess what, our work day's still going on. We used to have wraparound care for that. We could no longer offer that. The Morac Joint Unified School District said we got it. We were able to solve that problem. Still have a capacity problem in the Child Development Center. And so we've had to stop new enrollments, and I know that's causing some heartache. We will get through this. I have been impressed with some of the initiatives from the Mission Support Group and our Force Support Squadron. They are reaching out to inbound families and letting them know about, hey, you could become a family child care provider. You can actually make up to $7,000, you probably make around $7,000 a month as a family child care provider. If you're interested in doing that, here are the steps to go, and you can actually start them now because there's some paperwork and some DoD certifications you have to get through. Start that process before you even arrive so you can get here and help alleviate some of the strain on the CDC. So I'm just really, really impressed by these kind of initiatives, these kind of ideas, and the willingness of this bigger Edwards family to get together and try to help solve this problem together. Probably the one that I've heard the most about is our cessation of the youth sports. Again, it's something that we don't have the personnel to do. This does not prevent parents from getting together and kind of starting their own, kind of pickup leagues. We cannot endorse it. There's some liabilities and some legal things that would keep us from being the coordinators for that. But there's Facebook groups and everything, and there's nothing that our fields are available. You are welcome to come play soccer on the baseball field and organize it as families. And if there's one thing I know about our Edwards Big A Airmen, they're organized. There's a lot of engineers that can make a spreadsheet and figure out the matrix of who plays what and when, and so I encourage you to do that. This is unfortunate. My kids all enjoyed playing sports growing up, and so it's just something that we have to do in order to provide the level of service we do with the number of people that we have. On a good news front, we do live in the Mojave Desert. It's also a medical desert, but our med group is working assiduously to make it a little bit less of a desert, to actually kind of make us a little bit of an oasis on medical terms in the middle of our Mojave Desert. So lots of great initiatives from the med group that I'm really excited by, and to include some winning comm in terms of an urgent care center in Rosemont right outside the gate. On really, really good news, so over $31 million this year, we just received it, we just did the FMB earlier today, for dorm and CDC renovation and repair. Hats off to our CE group because they were shovel ready, and so $31 million. We're also getting winning and continuing encouraging comm on the apartments. I had really, really hoped, we did the groundbreaking last fall. I really actually, that's always ceremonial, right? There's a golden shovel, and you do all that, and you make the speeches, and you ring the bell at Ponchos. I had really, really hoped before I gave Colonel Tower the guide on that we'd actually be, no kidding, have bulldozers breaking ground. We are still awaiting the final financing. May Road has they've redone the calculations. They initially did it with commercial development, then they redid it with residential, and it actually came within the capital that they had. So It looks like, I mean, all the paperwork is straight. It's really just a matter down to the financing now. I'm still very optimistic, and this is actually gets attention at very, very high levels. We are first for so many things, and I do expect this will go forward, and we will be the first to have a privatized department here at Edwards Air Force Base. So that was just a real quick update on mission readiness, quality, AKA quality of life priorities. And the final priority was telling our story. And I'm not going to go into all the details of all we've done, but I will take this opportunity because it's my commander's call and I can. They don't know this is going to happen. They don't like that. PA normally likes to stand behind the shadows. They like to be behind the camera. And in fact, they are literally behind the camera right now. And they're back in the sound booth and they're streaming this to the world right now. So we have an absolutely phenomenal PA team. They're amazing. Yeah, I asked him if he had a permit for those concealed weapons. So this was from the test event. Again, it's just another example. This was Mission Command. Nobody told the airmen to go in, so we've had 3 test events now. The Team Edwards Squadron Throwdown, just an absolutely fun day to see which squadron. And then we had, you know, this year we actually had the extra advantage of having Cardiff versus Cardiff. And I will share with you that Colonel Cardiff won. But really, they might have ended up number 13 in the program, but they were certainly number 1 in our Hertz. This was the PA team. Chase, Mike, Carol, and Mary. So we do have a phenomenal PA, but telling our story is not just a PA thing. And I won't go through all the different lines of effort we have on this priority of telling our story. It is important. You all have a role in telling our story. There's an advantage in just knowing what, you know, I learn more often from kind of what the airmen are sharing and telling than sometimes I do through leadership channels. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, I don't know. There's an aspect for the taxpayer to kind of know, to be proud. There's a recruiting aspect of telling our story. In terms of, wow, there's really cool stuff going on in Edwards. AI on fighter jets? Sign me up for that. I just graduated from college with a computer science degree. I can go to Silicon Valley and make an app. Or I can come to Edwards Air Force Base and put it on a fighter that's going to go into an autonomous CCA. That's what I'm going to do. And so there's that aspect. And then there's a very important strategic communication part of that. Chairman Xi, I know, pays attention to what we do here at Edwards Air Force Base. And so I want him to know that we're flying the B-21 and that we're working on the F-47 and CCA and et cetera, et cetera. You also have a role, and our public affairs team is going to roll out some social media classes for those that are interested in how do you do it. I encourage you to certainly engage, but be positive and avoid political. You know, we have a very important mission. We are preventing the next war by developing the technology. Be cognizant of OPSEC. But certainly, you can be positive and share just about, you know, the great teamwork and the great things and the incredible airmen and what we're doing and the fact that we are mission ready here at Edwards Air Force Base, because the bad guys are watching. And it's very, very important that we do remain apolitical. Every single one of us takes an oath. Whether you're an officer, enlisted, civilians, you all raised your right hand and you took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It is incredibly important. You did not take an oath to a party. You did not take an oath to a politician. It's incredibly important that we are outside of what is becoming maybe an increasingly polarized political environment in the country. We are all part of this military thing, and we are outside, we are above politics. And so if you do engage in social media, don't do it in uniform. Don't be political. Be positive, because what you are doing is incredibly important, and I want Chairman Xi to know about it. For 80 years, we have been developing future capability, and we are still doing that today. This is the future Air Force. And every single one of you has a role in it. You know, the engineers sitting in the control room, the pilots flying the airplane, the maintainers that are putting it together, the loggies that are getting the parts, the fuel specialists that are getting the fuel, the FMers that are finding the money so we can actually keep flying past mid-July. The child care providers, every single, electricians, the dirt boys, don't forget the dirt boys, right? The defenders at the gate. When you come to the gate, smile at the defenders, tell them thank you. They've got a very, very hard job. And as you saw from kind of what Ukraine did and what the Mossad did deep inside of Iran, it's incredibly important. We are probably going to lose more B-21s sitting on the ground. They're hard to find when they're flying. It'll be a whole lot easier to shoot them down when they're static sitting on the ground than when they're flying around. So our defenders have an incredibly important role. All of you have an incredibly important role in preventing World War III. So we are the 412 Test Wing. We test and evaluate advanced aerospace systems. We do it with world-class installation and mission support. We are accelerating war-winning capability to the warfighter so that we can win the next war, but even better, prevent that war from happening in the first place. Thank you for what you do.
God, you've been good memorizing stuff. Okay.
All right, so if we'll indulge, take your seats. If we can indulge just a couple questions. We won't make this go on. If you've got something.
All right, so I'll take the first one.
Go for it.
All right. So I have a question here. Not sure you guys want me to answer this one, but I will. Could you provide kind of reframe and contrast to all the rumors surrounding the incoming PT changes? Really, me? Okay, yeah, we'll talk about PT for a little bit. Perhaps cast a vision for why they are so important. So when you think of readiness, a lot of people think of putting a uniform on, putting your kit on, and going down range, right? There's a lot more to readiness than just that piece of it. Physical fitness, I would offer, PT, is so vitally important because it's not just that aspect of it. Who knows what the 4 calf pillars are? And physical, right? 4 of them. I would offer that when you're physically fit, you're more mentally fit. When you're physically fit, right, that you feel more socially apt to go out and communicate with people. It ties into every aspect of the calf pillars. So why, I think the changes that they're talking about, why would you do it 2 times a year? Right? Because they're finding out that individuals that test 1 time a year might not be tested enough to ensure that they're ready anytime. Whose job is it to make sure that you're fit? Yeah, point the finger back at yourself. This is the United States military, and PT is important to what we do each and every day. I will tell you that I didn't realize how important it was until I was in Iraq in full kit in 120-degree weather. And if I wouldn't have done my job countless times, this is unemotional, fact-based data, that the individual to my right or my left would have suffered. So let's take the me monster out of it and really point the finger inward and understand why it's so valuable and so important to what we do, right? Where in the world do you get an opportunity to take a pre-test on a test and then throw it out? Not many places. There are those things that you need to focus on that are positives, right? If PT's an issue for you, work on it, because it's important. But let me remind you, it's also important to your airmen to the right or the left of you. So think about that. It's a team sport. PT is vitally important. I probably did not answer the question like you wanted me to, but I'm not going to get up here and bash why we're doing PT 2 times a year, because I truly believe that you being physically fit is a deterrent, right? So, it is what it is. Changes are coming. Embrace the changes. And the most important thing for the leaders in this room, from the bottom all the way up, is your attitude and how you embrace that change. Have the right attitude. Have the right wingman next to you, to your right or your left. Go out and get after it. PT is important, Wolf.
I've taken, we've had 6 versions of the PT test during my career. So it's like, change?
Yeah, it's like changing a uniform,
yeah,
right?
and they're still proposed. Yeah, we've changed my boots. I've had 3 different colors of boots.
Yep. And you're still here.
I'm still here.
Oh.
Yeah, and so actually, you're welcome to go out and PT with EOD. I'm dead serious. They are more than happy. They do a great job. In fact, on the last day of, the morning of his retirement, Chief Stoltz is going to go out and do a final PT session.
I do know about it, yeah. Medi's setting me up.
Yep, with EOD.
Oh.
All right, we'll do, we'll do 2 quick ones. All right, so has there been any recent assessment to determine whether the current cost of living reflects the lived economic experience of personnel here? There's always ongoing review of BAH, the rates, especially special salary adjustments. Those always are ongoing. There's a system. We actually did a out of cycle review 2 years ago. The challenge, of course, is that they are always lagging indicators because it waits until the data comes in and they're like, ooh, guess what? It costs more to live in California than we thought it did 2 years ago when we last set the rates, and then they adjust them. So you paying more now is going to help the people 2 years from now when the system finally catches up. But it's ongoing. That's always a challenge. You got anything to add on that, Chief?
Just real quick, a lot of my career, I'd see those surveys come out. Who in here has seen a BAH survey in their career? The last one, I got some numbers, 31%. Everybody wants more money to do this, more money to do that, but those surveys actually do have an impact on how much we get paid. So please take the time to do those and make a difference. They do matter, so please help us with that.
And I think this is a very fitting one. This will be the final question because we did go a little bit long, but we had to get those equations in for the engineers. So what is being done to support families with 2 working parents?
Yeah, it's been, yeah, I love it.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So what's being done to support families with 2 working parents who rely on base childcare at a remote installation? So this is very fitting because this is one that I do care a lot about. This has a very, very deep mission impact. I'll share a little bit of insight into kind of where we were. We are in test, we are professional risk managers. And in fact, the Air Force with its, kind of operationalizing risk management effort, when they came out with that, it's like, oh, we already do that. That's what we do all the time anyway. So our posture right now with our policy in the child and youth programs, we are actually taking more risk than we thought. So there's a risk right now with the providers that we have. We're less than 2/3 what we need with providers. There's a risk that somebody could show up, to work, and then there's not a spot for their child. So we have actually over-enrolled, oversubscribed, specifically because we didn't want to displace, so we have, the tiering process. We don't get to set the tiers. Those come to us, from the DoD and the Air Force Services Center. So the 1 Alpha, 1 Bravo. So if you're a single parent military, you're the highest priority. You're going to have a spot. If you are a dual military, you're just 1 spot below that, but equal priority. All those priority 1s are all the military. Priority 2, again, the rules are set not with Edwards Air Force Base in mind, because generally you're in the middle of a metropolitan area and there's lots more options. Here, you might have to drive 45 minutes away or an hour away from where you work. So if you have a sick child and you're in the middle of the mission in a control room, what do you do? So when the Force Support Squadron first came with, hey, we're not meeting what the Air Force sets for us for the standard, here's what we can do, here's the capacity that we can offer with what we have, we realized that was gonna have too much of a mission impact. And so there was I was very impressed with the leadership discussion that happened, and ultimately decided, okay, we're actually gonna take some little more risk on the capacity side of overcapacity, of taking more to avoid the problem of dual working parents with childcare. Now that doesn't mean that we've solved every single problem, because we still do have a problem, and we have, with PCS season now, and we know it's a challenge with some of the TPS students that have come in with working spouses and they're enrolled in TPS, and when you're in the middle of TPS, you really don't have the option of like, well, actually I've got to stay home with the kid today. No, you're going to miss the Navier-Stokes equations class, which is pretty important.
Oops, didn't know.
I think. So we still have, things, but I am optimistic that the initiatives that we're putting in place will help to grow some capacity, so that this is a temporary thing, and we'll eventually be back. I would have liked to have turned it over to Colonel Tower in a much better state, but now he'll get to be the hero, because maybe in half a year from now, we don't have to talk about this anymore. So, all right. Once again, thank you for what you do. And for Chief Stoltzfus's final command call, this was a good one. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you very much.
Room, Tain Hut.